Right now, some Democrats are calling it a constitutional crisis. I don't think we're quite there yet. Keep your shirts on, especially you, Schumer. Today on Fox and Friends, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway tried to put the kibosh on all that talk. Watch.
The Democrats don't seem to begin or end a sentence these days without having the word crisis in it. So it's not a constitutional crisis. This president and his team have been very compliant with the Mueller investigation. I think over 1 million pieces of paper have been produced. Over 33 or so individuals have either produced documents or testified or both, or met or both.
The president also has one ace in the hole, the clock. Democrats are clamoring for investigations, but they're not in power for another 2 months, January 3rd to be exact. So between now and then, the president has quite a bit of leeway to use his executive power as he sees fit. But he doesn't hold all the cards. There's word the Mueller team is now writing their final report on the Russia investigation, perhaps looking to head Trump off at the pass, just like a good old Western. In other words, the next few days and months are about to get a whole lot more interesting, if that's possible. Right now, we've got former CIA analyst and radio show host Buck Sexton in the house to make sense of everything in the world. Buck, welcome back.
Thank you, Kennedy. Good to see you.
So let's talk first about the fear and hysteria over Sessions firing. It's not a surprise. The president has been telegraphing for many, many months that he was going to do just this. He even said it would probably happen after the midterms. It happened the day after the midterms. So what do you make of the reaction to Sessions' resignation?
The president told me in the Oval Office a couple of months ago, I don't have an attorney general. So there is zero surprise here that after the midterms, the president decided to switch things up. And I think that everyone needs to just take a step back and look at what's really going on here. A constitutional crisis is not whatever a bunch of libs don't like. There's actually no problem with the authority the president has used here to replace his attorney general, who serves at his pleasure. The fact that you had an attorney general who had recused himself from anything to do with Russia collusion, the Mueller probe, the special counsel, and that person has been replaced is not actually unethical in any way, shape, or form. The president can get rid of the attorney general. He did get rid of the attorney general. And I think it's really interesting that people are claiming that Whitaker should recuse himself.
Yeah, what is the basis for that? Is it because he has written in op-ed pieces how he foresees the Mueller investigation coming to an end and what he considers to be various red lines in the Mueller investigation, and he's had strong opinions? Are opinions a good basis for that kind of recusal?
I mean, there's so much laughable hypocrisy coming from, particularly where I am down here in the swamp on this one, from the media and from Democrats. Kennedy, first of all, you'll remember a couple of months back when you had some FBI agents who had text messages saying horrific things about the president, and we were told, oh, hold on a second. People are allowed to have their opinions. Those happen to be senior FBI agents, in one case, a senior FBI agent who was overseeing an investigation that went directly to the president of the United States. So now we're being told this guy, Whitaker, is not allowed to essentially have stated anything about the Mueller probe, or else he's supposed to recuse himself. He said that there should be parameters. Is there really a debate about that? Yeah, there should be parameters. This should not be an open-ended fishing expedition. That there's so much criticism of him for that reason, saying that there should be limitations on the special counsel, just goes to show you that people want it to be a fishing expedition, the people that are so opposed to this. And the bigger issue...
Yes, that's what they want. They want government power to be used against those in power they disagree with. But I want to ask a little bit about Rod Rosenstein, because even though he is kind of an unpopular figure in many circles, and he has several noted conflicts of interest, and that's not conspiracy theory, there are not dots that need to be connected. That's plain fact. And there are people who are upset that Rosenstein was not appointed interim attorney general. What do you make of that?
Rosenstein has a much more clear conflict of interest, as well as a direct involvement in some of the issues that are under investigation in the special counsel. Rosenstein, the firing of James Comey, you can't separate these things. I mean, Rosenstein is actually somebody who should have recused himself many, many months ago based on any kind of standard of conflict of interest And I think that what you see is that people are just applying the standard for what they want, and then all of a sudden the standard goes away when they don't. Rosenstein would not have been a good pick for this. And also, are we to think that Whitaker is unethical just because he thinks that there should be some limitations to the special counsel?
I don't know. I mean, a little later in the show, we're going to talk about who might succeed Jeff Sessions. It doesn't seem like this is the guy who is going to be confirmed as the official attorney general. He's the chief of staff, and I'm still curious, do you know who appointed him chief of staff? Was it Sessions or was it the president?
So, I believe, although don't quote me on this, I believe that Jeff Sessions brought him in.
I mean, that
this.
makes sense. When you're the attorney general, it seems as though you would be able to appoint your own chief of staff.
Yes. Yeah, it's not something that requires any kind of congressional authorization.
That's the issue that Judge Napolitano raised with Whitaker's interim appointment, is that he does not have that sort of congressional stamp necessary to lord over the bastion of justice.
But this is the process. The process is you appoint an interim attorney general. You have somebody who becomes the interim attorney general, and then you have somebody else who has to go through advice and consent of the Senate. So everything here is well within constitutional bounds. Everything the president's doing is within his authority. There's no lack of ethics at work here. It's just people like the idea of Rosenstein, because let's be honest, a lot of liberals believe that Rosenstein is at least somewhat anti-Trump, and so they want somebody.
Therefore, he must be good. Therefore, he must be good.
But other people who don't come out as overtly anti-Trump, like Whitaker, they can't be considered ethical. And it just goes to show you, when it looks really bad for people that liberals like within the DOJ or the FBI, it's everyone's allowed to have political opinions. Let's not take this too far.
Yeah.
And then
there's no reciprocity. There's no
reciprocity
rule
at all.
It's pretty insane, and I continue to demand that because I like to party. Buck Sexton, thank you very much.
I like to party too. That's why we get along so well on the show.
That's why we're here. 9 o'clock
Thank you.
Eastern. Love it.